The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Great to be back in with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and you. 489-1240 to get in. 489-1240 to dial us up here on Hail Varsity Radio. 800-825-5865. What is happening with the Big Red Portal? We'll tell you about it. More thoughts on Husker basketball to get into as Iowa City looms. Some NFL as the field is set. And can always email the show as well, Chris at hailvarsity.com. We get our starting five shout-outs going and can catch us many different ways. Hail Varsity YouTube, watch the show that way as we stream almost every day, Monday through Saturday for you. Hail Varsity Radio YouTube at H Varsity Radio and across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. How did Elijah Herbel celebrate his Denver Broncos getting into the postseason? A beating of the back-to-back world champion Kansas City Chiefs and their C team.
It was incredible. The Broncos held Patrick Mahomes to 0 completions yesterday, 0 passing yards. It was a defensive performance like I've never seen.
I mean, and the way they handled that Chiefs defense was incredible. Look at you.
I mean, Bo Nix just dealing almost perfect in the first half.
He was 17 of 17 in the first half, wasn't he?
17 of 18.
Who dropped it?
It was slightly underthrown just before halftime. The running back streaking out of the backfield, threw it off the back foot, and couldn't complete it for another touchdown. Broncos settled for a field goal. It didn't matter, though. As my personal long nightmare is over, the Broncos are back into postseason play. And no matter what happens next weekend against the Buffalo Bills, I can be happy because nobody expected this.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, Peyton's proven. You got Bo Nix that's come in and done well. You've got a really good pass rush with Denver. That's not ever really been a problem for them.
They just set the team record this year for most sacks in a season.
I heard that. We may have to get Chris Kelsey on here this week. So a little Buffalo representation.
We get Hoekstein on too for Broncos representation.
Yeah, but he's more of a Patriot.
But he did play briefly.
We played for the Chiefs and he played for...
Or we go Neil Smith.
Yeah, I talked to Neil a couple weeks ago. So, yeah, we could whatever you want to do. We can just spin the wheel.
Let's see. Oh, we got to get some Bills representation here. How about some Broncos representation, huh?
Yeah. Maybe Bobby Humphrey's out, so maybe we can give old Bobby Humphrey a shout.
But anyway, long story short, how'd I celebrate? Poured myself up an old-fashioned with some Templeton.
Nice, yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was Schmidt's Christmas present. So a little old-fashioned, and I put some jalapeno poppers in the oven and ate some jalapeno poppers during Sunday Night Football. It worked. It was
good work.
Good.
Let's get these starting five shout-outs before we talk portal shopping. Jeff Snitley is in, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty, and you said it, Snitley, in the comments. Nice win by Fred and company over the weekend. Absolutely big-time win. We'll get there in a moment. The other Dave is here. Brent checks in, and Brent fired up. The Fighting Freddies looking good. Now let's win a tournament game. That's the hope for Big Red basketball fans. Patrick is here. Tuck is in. And Kobe says, what's up? Kobe, good to have you in. Wrestling Oranges is here. Great Red Shark is back. He says he's in and available as special teams coordinator for the low, low price of $47. Reverend Rule is here. Send me your resume. We're hiring. Andrew, good to have you. Shane is here. Checking in, looking forward to the end of the week already. You know, get through the brutal cold, and yeah, let's get to the weekend. Shane checks in. Uncle Larry is here. Arlo is in. Eat Beef says it's freaking cold. Yeah, it is. And here he is. We were wondering if he'd make his way back into the stream as Ed Foley checks in. Y'all can't get rid of me that easy. I will still have my hands on this program. I just need to step back and be an in-state recruiting guy. Listen, I
don't know about that.
I hope Ed stays around the program. I hope Ed finds his way somewhere else on the staff. And that may be because the guy does like to get out and see people. And you've had a bunch of high school coaches from around the state, Elijah, that have been pretty vocal on social media thanking the guy for his genuine interest in kind of kicking tires.
Well,
and that's so big with this state. Not only do you have the Cardinal Nelsons of the world that continue to emerge in this state, right? But you've got your metro regions, you've got your central part of the state, and you've got all corners that you don't want to be the staff or the head man that just takes Nebraska, the in-state part of Nebraska, for granted. You've got to recruit the in-state like they're an out-of-state player. And I don't think Rule and his staff have taken it for granted. They've been very adamant about, checking in and being upfront and honest with kids. And that's what's needed and what's necessary. But no, Ed Foley is a guy that's had a long career for a reason in football. It just didn't happen here.
I would be surprised if Ed Foley has another place on the Matt Rule staff as it stands.
Couldn't you do liaison with in-state?
You could. I'd be surprised, though. It feels like one of those situations where it'd be best for both sides to get a fresh start.
Well,
a completely fresh start.
It would be awkward. Somebody so close to you that's been with you everywhere you've been.
Yes.
I mean, you would offer it to him, and if he didn't take it, you wouldn't be mad that he wouldn't take it.
And now there's the discussion, read the tea leaves. Why did the contract reportedly expire on December 31st, and we don't get news until the weekend that Ed Foley is officially out the door? That's kind of where my mind goes of like, I wonder if that was offered, and Ed Foley said thanks, but no thanks.
Sure.
That's kind of where I'm at with this. At the end of the day, Ed Foley, I think, was by all accounts, I never met the guy personally, but by all accounts, a great guy, really represented the people of the state of Nebraska well. Got along well with the people in the state of Nebraska, and it sucks it didn't work out, but it was pretty clear from the on-field results that a change was needed. So you wish him the best, and you hope that Nebraska can improve in that facet of the game next season.
We touched on this yesterday with the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday Live podcast, but what do you want special teams to be? What's the philosophy? And it's got to be a difference maker. It's got to be a difference maker. It can't be, well, just don't screw it up. I mean, mentality. And I don't know what Ed's philosophy was. My run-ins with him were pleasant. We talked about the great city of McCook, where my grandparents used to live and where my mom's from. And I said, there's a couple of spots you got to stop and eat, Ed, when you're out west in McCook. He took his phone out and said, give me the names. It was just a fun chat. We didn't talk hang time or punt coverage or blocks or anything like that. We just kind of BS'd about food, which was fun.
And now everyone, all the Husker fans, Schmidt's not asking real questions at the press conferences.
We had Ed available twice.
I'm kidding. Again, I think a fresh start probably best for both parties, and you wish Ed the best as he moves on. It's a results-based industry.
Oh, big time.
That's how college football is. That's how a lot of industries are, and Ed clearly wasn't getting the results. Whether that's his fault or whether that is just issues in roster construction,
ultimately,
roster management.
Buck stops with your coordinator.
That's what I was going. Ultimately, the buck stops, and the results weren't there for Ed Foley this season, and they were just all right last season.
Yep. Tim Verghese going to be with us, talk some recruiting and Nebraska in their roster additions and subtractions. Jay Moore with us next hour. He played special teams for Bill Bush, so that's one of the names that's always out there and prominent. We'll get Jay Moore's take on where Nebraska goes with special teams. And then Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. A Monday with Charlie. We'll get up with Coach here in less than 1 hour. Let's talk hoops for a moment. Not pretty, but yes, it was gritty. Huskers get it handled as they downed UCLA. Mick Cronin, UCLA, another ranked pelt for Fred and company. It's now not really prove it, but can you handle it, right? It's going to be a dogfight on the road wherever you go in the Big Ten, can you go compete? Can you go compete? Can you be ready to go tomorrow night in Iowa City against a team that's down? Can you kick them while they're down? Or do they come back with some bloodlust, and does Nebraska go in on the road after a nice upset, everyone pats them on the back type situation? Fred, in his presser today, was asked about the top 25, says I'm not paying attention to it, and then took off. That was the final question of the presser. So they just got to kind of keep focused in and stay hungry and not get full, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think they just got to continue locking into what makes them a good basketball team.
Which is defense.
It's defense and being both physically and mentally tough.
Yeah,
I don't think you necessarily saw the mental toughness against Michigan State. You definitely saw it on Saturday. I mean, the way that game started, Bryce Williams comes back. I think they're on 7-0. He hits the big three. Game of runs in the first half. And Nebraska stayed mentally locked in through all those runs. The Pinnacle Bank Arena crowd helps in that regard, obviously. But you have another test coming up tomorrow night against Iowa, who is, I'm sure, going to be PO'd about how things went over the weekend against Wisconsin, giving up 110-plus points. They're going to have a lot of motivation on their side. I think they're going to come out and punch Nebraska in the mouth, and it comes down to Nebraska locking into what they are, a defensive basketball team that is mentally tough. They got to go be mentally tough tomorrow night at Carver Hawkeye.
Nope, totally agree. Who's on the horn?
Steve.
Steve, what's up, dude? How we doing?
Hello, this is Steve from Lincoln. Chris and Elijah, I know that you two have a lot on your plate today, so I'll get right to it. Just a couple things. First, Chris, in my opinion, once again, Hail Varsity Radio on 5900 is the number one sports show covering Husker football and all other Husker sports. I thank you. Chris, your program has great and important breaking Husker news, past and current Husker coaches, guests who have been on the field of Husker football and the NFL, and great personal insight from both you, Chris, and Elijah and your other staff. And, of course, the great Clausborn for added great measure.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I want to know your input, Chris. I know you touched on it slightly, but talk a little more about that great men's Husker basketball victory over UCLA and the women's win in basketball.
No,
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, Steve. Thanks for calling in, man. Women got even in Big Ten play, need to defend home court, right? And it was something that had to happen. Britt is phenomenal and showed that yesterday with not only what she did offensively and defensively, but just as someone as young as she is to be able to go to. So we've been watching Britt Prince play for 100 years, and now she's at Nebraska doing her thing. That's big time. We're big Markowski fans as well. So great step for the Nebraska women yesterday. And honestly, with the men, I don't know if you have come to expect it. Maybe you do as a Nebraska basketball fan, but right now it's more than just a nice story and a streak. It's a reality that you go to PBA, you're not going to get out alive. I mean, they have that. It's and Mick Cronin kind of poo-pooed it, but it's a real thing because of what you've talked about, Elijah, and what we've said as well. The energy, the extra juice. It's a sixth man. It's a barrier you got to deal with because it can turn the switch at the right time of a ball game and get momentum going. You feed off of that if you're a player, I would imagine, and it allows you to either lock in or make a play. And you love the cheers and the applause.
And I've seen people discuss, like, man, you got to figure out how to get that Pinnacle Bank Arena crowd energy into Memorial Stadium or back into Memorial Stadium.
It's a different crowd.
A, it's a different crowd.
It's an angrier crowd, and I mean that as a compliment.
But also, B, the team gives the crowd reasons to get into it.
Yeah.
Like, you see the play from Sam Hoiberg, which is a guy that I think people can kind of relate to because he's not the biggest, the fastest, the strongest. He can't jump the highest.
He's just got a willpower.
But damn, does he have willpower and effort. And whenever he makes an effort play that saves a possession for Nebraska or takes 2 points off the board for the other team, the crowd goes wild. Like, the team feeds off the juice from Pinnacle Bank Arena and then feeds back into the juice in the way they play on the floor. He's
doing his job, but he's also extremely unselfish. He just wants to help the team win. Nebraska fans appreciate that mindset, and he's producing. He's performing. And it's helping the team win, and he's sacrificing his body to do it. And Nebraska fans, you've seen that from different Huskers over the years in different sports. You love it, and you appreciate it, and that's why you keep coming back. They've won big games, and there's not a hotter sport in this state than Nebraska basketball when it gets rolling. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is, it because it's still that chase, right, for a win in March. It's still that chase to get off that list, as you're the only team on that list. But what Fred's done is great, and you love the brand and the iconic jersey coming to PBA. You got the win, and you beat UCLA at their own game. That's playing defense and being tough. And you had, quite frankly, a brutal offensive night. You found a way to win the game. And that's more the story than going sideways for you, for Nebraska basketball and Fred Hoiberg. They get it done in clutch time. You appreciate that. We'll talk about Nebraska, some offensive linemen they are searching for out of the Big Ten and SEC. Tim Verghese going to join us from Rivals and Inside Nebraska next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. It's Hail Varsity on a Monday. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Tim Verghese with us from Rivals.com, Inside Nebraska. Tim, the hair looks phenomenal. It looked phenomenal the last time we talked to you, but it's a little high and tighter today. Was that a tough decision, my friend?
Yeah, definitely. But it was time. Needed to clean up, a big cleanup. Kind of let it get a little crazy towards the end of football season, and wasn't able to get an appointment with my barber before the holidays, and it just got a little out of hand.
Now, did you pull up a picture of Dana Holgerson and said, "Give me this"?
Give me that. Yeah. Was it a 12-play, 80-yard drive, or was it a 2-minute drill, Tim? I mean, where are we going? I like it. A couple of shout-outs in the stream. QB1 Ace is in. NASCAR Eric is here. Ed Foley continues to stick around in the stream. I don't know if it's that Ed Foley or not, but Tim, I want to dive in and get your take on a couple of portal names. You have Elijah Pritchett, offensive tackle from Bama, and then, of course, George Fitzpatrick, offensive tackle from Ohio State. What's your read on both of these guys that came out of high school pretty well ranked? And clearly, you go to both of those programs, you're top 150, if not top 20 in your position, likely coming out of high school. And what's your feel with Nebraska's direction in the portal, going after guys from big-time programs? You've seen it happen in the past, and you've had varying degrees of success. What's out there ceiling-wise for both of these guys, and could they fit with Nebraska?
Yeah, I think that I'm hearing generally more concrete noise around Pritchett, mm-hmm. And in my opinion, of the two, I need to go back and watch more Fitzpatrick of what's out there, and the thing with Pritchett, you see the numbers and at first glance you look at allowed the most pressures of Alabama's starting offensive line, and it's by a far margin. He allowed 31 pressures and 6 sacks this season. Those are great metrics. And you go in and watch the film. I watched about 3-4 games of him today, and it's just an inconsistency thing. It really is it ultimately comes down to inconsistent technique where he's over or under setting. Rep to rep, it looks fine. But there's just every now and then it's a bad rep where he's oversetting or he's undersetting, or he'll take a pass set and he's too patient with his hands and he lets the defender come into him. And those are just little things where a little tweaking, a little training, a couple more reps, you can get that inconsistency out of him. The issue is if it never gets out of him and he is consistently this inconsistent player, that's just who you have to deal with. And that player is still someone that is of starting caliber at Alabama. There's a reason he was on the field all 12 games this year, even with those inconsistencies, even with the pressure rate given up, because he's a mauler in the run game. And he's physically just a large human being, 6'6", 327 pounds. and I don't think there's a whole lot of fat on that frame right now. Pretty lean, all things considered. Moves pretty well for the size. Again, like he oversets, undersets, has a bad set, and he can tend to lose his balance. But for the most part, moves pretty well for the size. You like the knee bend. You like just kind of the functional athleticism. There's a lot to work with there. And similar for Fitzpatrick, just in the sense that it's a combination of traits right now that really haven't just clicked just yet. So it's kind of a thing of, okay, will they click? We'll see. And as for Nebraska's chances, again, here a more concrete thing with Pritchett, but I think this is a fluid situation, and I think Nebraska at this point in the cycle is having to be aggressive just because of where things stand and how big of a need this is. Like, I think this is something they'd like to at least have a tackle body in before spring ball, and then they can reevaluate in the spring window.
Well, let me ask the question, Tim. If Nebraska doesn't bring in a transfer, we're looking at right tackle. That seems to be the spot that Nebraska's repeatedly going after, guys. Who do you think would be in line at right tackle if there isn't anybody brought in by, say, spring football?
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Knack's the one that makes some sense, a guy that has the staff's trust and has been there for a while. I mean, for me, the big question is, where's Grant Brix at in his development? And I think, the fact that they are searching for one says that they don't think Grant Brix is ready, or at the very least, they want a proven name at right tackle, and I will also caution this. I don't necessarily think the portal search for linemen equates to a lack of trust or lack of belief in the abilities of the guys in the room right now, specifically along the interior. I do think they still think there's a high ceiling there for Grant Brix. I think they're optimistic on what Houston Quijano Torres and Gibson Pyle and Preston Tuamu can be down the line. And Justin Evans is a pretty sound interior guy right now. Gunnar Gatula has played well in stretches this year. So I think there's still optimism in the room, but you have Dylan Raiola, you have so many other needs addressed on the offensive side of the ball. You want to protect him the best you can. And if you have, an Elijah Pritchett out there, a Fa'amu out there, you go and get those guys. You go search for those guys. So I expect them to try and aggress this and bring in at least one body before spring ball. But again, I'm curious to see how the spring battles play out both on the interior and at right tackle.
Tim Verghese with us here at Tim Verghese on Twitter, Rivals.com, and of course Inside Nebraska, where you can find him, Steve Marek, their YouTube shows throughout the week, also great watches. Jameer Khan, Nebraska picks up a defensive back from Southern Illinois. Dude's super physical. What else sticks out to you? How do you think he can fit into Butler and what he wants to do?
Yeah, just again, like you said, physical, plays a little bigger than his size, like scrappy is, I think, the best way to put it. Like, he just plays with that edge and that want to you like at corner. I think the biggest thing with him is just how is it all going to translate to the power forward level. You like some of the short area movement, the explosive ability, the change of direction ability that he has. You like some of the just his natural cover skills as well. Kind of largely wins on athleticism right now versus technique. So you want to see, that technique continue to get polished here in the spring and into the fall. The biggest thing for me, my read on all of the defensive back additions in particular, they wanted to get more athletic there. They've done that, and whether these guys are ready to play or not, that's not for me to say right now. They wanted to get athletic, the more athletic there. They did that. They got three really good athletes in Andrew Marshall, Jameer Khan, and Justin Redd. Three guys that, Andrew Marshall's played good football, experienced football. Jameer Khan has been experienced, but it's at a lower level where, we just have to see how it translates. But there's things on both of their film that are translatable to the Power 4 level. Marshall in particular, really like the Oregon tape. Evan Stewart's a guy that I've watched since high school, was a 5-star receiver out of high school. I've seen a handful of people go stride for stride with Evan Stewart in my life. He did that in the Oregon game a couple of times, and that's really impressive. That just tells you the level of athlete that he is. That Evans not only like one of the more athletic receivers I've seen, he's a super nuanced route runner and knows how to like manipulate timing and get guys off of him. The fact that he couldn't shake Marshall on certain reps, it just tells me a lot about who Marshall is as a cover corner.
Tim Verghese with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska in the transfer portal. And Tim, Khan wasn't the only pickup in the portal. Nebraska also goes and gets Watson Trent from Georgia Southern, a guy who had double-digit tackles against Nebraska back in 2021. I want to get your thoughts on what that pickup means, not just for Nebraska's linebacker room, but also what it means for the addition of Deshaun McCullough and where you think he's going to slot into the defense. Because I think this move kind of gives them a little bit of flexibility with McCullough. But I want to get your thoughts on Watson Trent.
No, absolutely. I think the biggest thing with this move is, one, you get your Mekhi Bear replacement essentially. And two, now you all of a sudden you have the freedom where Deshaun McCullough doesn't have to be your inside linebacker. You now have the flexibility to play him a jack, to play him all over the defense. I kind of wonder if Nebraska is going to put him into an individual position or move him around the defense, kind of like a chess piece. That's something I think we still need to figure out. But now they have that flexibility to kind of figure out what they want to do with him. I think you have to really be excited about defense that the inside linebackers are Vincent Shavers and Marquise Watson-Trent. Like, those are two just athletic guys that fly around the defense, want to hit, love to hit, fit the run well. Watson-Trent's, I think, a perfect person for Vincent Shavers to learn some of the little things in the game of, shuffling through some of the noise up front, reading and reacting, and just learning how to read offenses. Watson Trent has so much experience relative to Shavers, and I think all of that's going to be helpful for the two of them. So I think this is a big piece. I think he's a guy. I'm going to call my shot here a couple months early. I think Marquise Watson Trent's like a single-digit number candidate.
Okay,
it's impressive.
Well, he was Player of the Year last year.
Yeah, he was incredible in the Sun Belt for sure. Tim, couple of minutes here before we get you out. What do you believe Nebraska becomes on special teams? Is you've got the report on Foley. We were talking about that to get things kicked off. Does Nebraska look on the interior? Do they go after a couple of names that Nebraska fans know when we talk Eckler or Bill Bush, someone else? What's your temperature on this?
Yeah, I think they're doing their due diligence. I mean, I think there's some legitimate smoke to, not legitimate smoke, but I would say Eckler's I think legitimately in play, just because of kind of the way things line up for both him and Tennessee and Nebraska right now. But I think Rule's going to do his due diligence because I think, again, as any football coach would, recognizes that they have an opportunity here to take this thing from some games in negative, at the very worst, neutral, just nothing. You're getting average, whatever, to a legit weapon for them. They have a transfer kicker in Jack McAllister that can do some things. They have some capable kickers. For me, I just want to see the kickoff units, the kick return units, and the punt return units turn into weapons. Be more consistent, change the game, do more of that stuff. And they haven't really been able to do that in 2 years under Ed Foley. I want to see that change, because I think you have an opportunity here to turn this thing from, hey, some games it's a disaster and causing you games. At the very, very worst, there were games this year where it's at the very best, there were games this year where it's hey, I didn't really think about special teams all that much. Brian Buschini had a few good punts. Let's turn that into, hey, special teams help win the game. How about that, that muff punt and that recovery helped win that game for Nebraska. That crafty move on fourth down, from Nebraska allowed them to potentially win that game. Let's make that an everyday and every week thing.
Quickly here, Tim, if you're on the recruiting trail, what qualities are you looking for? We got about 60 seconds here. What qualities are you looking for in a returner?
Shiftiness. I want to see shiftiness, and I want to see contact balance. Those are the two things I'm really looking for at this point. Is the ability to react, in split seconds, and the ability to take some hits, because you have to shed 1-2 hits essentially to house anything in this current college football, the current return landscape.
Are there any guys on a roster that you think fit that bill?
Andrew Marshall, Isaiah Mosey.
Okay. Well, hey, those are two options, one with experience, one coming in, but you've seen teams that are still playing ball really utilize some game changers that are freshmen, right? So see if Nebraska can get that third phase to be a winner, not a detriment. Tim, you take care, man. We'll check in with you next week and keep following recruiting in the portal, all right?
Yes, sir. Sounds good. We'll talk next week.
Appreciate you. There he is, Tim Verghese, with us inside Nebraska. Rivals.com, at Tim Verghese on Twitter.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point at you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Back with you. It's Hail Varsity on a Monday. If you missed Tim Verghese or just caught part of it, great breakdown on some of the portal targets, specifically Alabama offensive tackle Elijah Pritchett that is taking a gander at Nebraska. Good oversight by Tim overall with Nebraska and the need and the urgency to have, an extra option on the offensive line. And also, Elijah, I really appreciated how he said, look, it's not that they're selling stock in the room that they've recruited. You just want to make sure the old prime rib's done to your liking before you serve it.
That's a really good way to put it. I mean, we've talked so many times about how offensive line...
We got to go offensive line and food analogy.
Well, it just makes the most sense. We've compared the offensive line to a brisket. If you pull that brisket off too early, it's going to be tough and gross, and everyone's going to go home upset. So, do you bring in some...
You can't go the Lincoln Riley route with the brisket.
No. He may have overcooked his.
I know. You can't go that route where it's well done.
You can't go well done, but if you undercook it, you're not going to break down that connective tissue, and it's going to be bad too. It might be juicy, but it's going to be tough. So what? Like, if you're looking at the... All right. If you're looking and you're having people over, and you got the brisket on the smoker.
What a tough offensive lineman. You don't want a juicy offensive lineman.
Jesus Christ.
You just don't.
But if you got people coming over and the brisket's on the smoker and you're looking, you're like, man, we're still only sitting at like 165, 170. It's going to be a bit here. You go get the hors d'oeuvres, right?
You pour. You go get Elijah's whiskey and just start pouring. There'll be in a little bit. Just raise your glass when you're ready.
Something to, not saying that brisket's not going to be ready, but it just might be ready a little later than you'd like. So you got to have something to tide the people over.
That for sure.
I like that comparison from Tim.
Yeah, exactly.
It works.
Check him out on the podcast. Can check out Hail Varsity YouTube. Like and subscribe to the channel Hail Varsity Radio Twitter. But search the audio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play when you search Hail Varsity Radio. So Anonymous has checked in and said, look, had to skip the UCLA game due to illness, and then my friends got to have some drinks with Jay Moore again. All right. I'm not sure if they had 4 drinks each in front of them at this time or not. We'll confirm or deny with Jay here in less than an hour. Jay Moore going to be with us here to do the Blackshirt Hour. So, well, good. I'm sorry you missed the game, Anonymous. It was a good one for the Big Red.
It was fun. That first half was wacky. You were there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The first half, how did you feel when Nebraska was down 7-0?
Well, and Fred made me laugh because he opened the presser saying, well, and just growing up, right? Growing up, my dad had Section B in the old Devati Center area. So Section B was kind of catty corner or angled to one of the baskets, and it was they were great seats. It was an awful, I shouldn't say awful, but it was just an awesome experience growing up where, every time KU or Okie State or Missouri or you name a Big 8 squad or Big 12 squad, more so the Big 8 era, with Pike and the crew, it was electric. I mean, it was fantastic. In PBA, more times than not, you had a little nervous energy when they were down 7-0, but you knew it was going to be a slog defensively for both teams to get. I mean, I counted. I think there's only one time where UCLA hit consecutive possessions in the first half, and the way to win the game. Do you want to hit some jump shots? Yeah. Will you take 13 of 15 from the free throw line? You'll take it because that's finding a way to win. That's manufacturing points. So, no, it was some nervous energy. But then once you took the lead, it erupted. Once that run extended from 8-1 to 12-1 to 15-1, the place was nuts. Mick called a timeout. Then they got another TV timeout. And that kind of put the 13-point lead on ice, and UCLA chipped away a little bit. So, no, the crowd was great. It was good.
Yeah, that was at the The back-to-back timeouts was frustrating. Was that the 8-minute mark of the second half? I think whenever Nebraska really struggled to score after that, where
they were Nebraska UCLA was teetering, got the timeout, got the quick TV timeout, and then it doused Nebraska's momentum.
Yeah, and it got nervous a little bit late in that second half. But I felt personally better late in the second half with Nebraska not scoring because of what they'd already put together defensively than I felt in the first half. The first half kind of felt like UCLA was waiting to erupt. And they never quite did with the back and forth nature of that game. But I'll eat my crow and admit that I was 100% wrong with my projection on Friday.
Well, UCLA responded with their own run. I think it was 11-1 or 13-1. So, but hey, Nebraska's not intimidated by this situation against, name a squad, the last 20 that have come in. Nebraska's beat some good teams, and it's not a fluke. It's not flukish down in the rail yard. It just isn't. And Nebraska, last team to beat him was Creighton. And that Creighton team.
Well, in the last time you lost a conference game at home, Schmidt, I love how this performance of the Nebraska basketball team's got you choked up. It was that emotional, huh?
I have been dealing with snot fest, and now it's turned into cough fest.
Scientific term?
Yes, it is. There's another scientific term I can't say.
But you got to go back to the last home conference loss. You got to go all the way back to 2023, I think February 2023 for the last home conference loss, which is wild. You got a streak going there. Yeah, no, you're right.
Who was it?
Sparty?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think it was Sparty.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. And that was like Derek Walker, Sam Griesel.
Yeah. No, that Sparty team. That was a game under 500 Nebraska basketball team that they finished strong, but just not enough. So they've continued to grow, and
it's the mindset that they have that they're going to lock down their home floor. They feed off the crowd, as we kind of talked about earlier. They feed back into that crowd. Now you just got to show the consistency to be able to go put together a performance on the road, because you also haven't seen a fantastic road performance for Nebraska since probably Assembly Hall last year. That's the one that stands out as
Nebraska's
being a confident road performance.
Done some impressive things. They've won at Wisconsin under Fred.
Mm-hmm.
They have won. They've done well against Indiana, despite Indiana's talent advantage. They out-tough Indiana.
Yeah, 4 straight against the Hoosiers?
Yeah, which is wild. And get Dan Dockich rolling on that one. And the problem has been going to East Lansing, but that's a problem for a lot of teams.
Well, you've also had a problem going to Carver Hawkeye, which is what the task is tomorrow night. It always feels like Iowa shoots the lights out whenever Nebraska comes to town.
Well, and I don't know what I'm going to get tomorrow night. I don't know what Iowa I'm going to get. Am I going to get mad Iowa that's good from distance? Do I get a Nebraska team where 2 of their scorers respond against a team where they don't really like to defend the perimeter?
I'm fully expecting Iowa, random 6'4" dude from small town Iowa to go light it up from
7
3.
of 10 from 3.
That's what
but I expect the Siegen to bounce back. I do offensively, and I expect Bryce to get back to his efficiency. KG checks in on the stream, says, Ed Foley seems like a guy that would collect stamps and would be all too happy to show you that stamp collection, except for the most valued stamp. That one he won't allow you to see. That's a painting right there.
Oddly specific.
Something. Yeah. Coach McBride's on the way. We'll wind down hour 1.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Good to hang out, winding down this first hour. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and find us on YouTube, Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Captain is here. Good to have him in. Reminder, you've got Supernovas volleyball coming up. Be sure to be a part of history as season gets rolling here Friday, January 10th at the CHI Center. The Atlanta Vibe coming to town and help raise that championship banner. And get ready to watch world-class talent featuring Olympians, NCAA champions, All-Americans, plus debuts of those local stars from right here in this volleyball state. Get your tickets now to Supernovas volleyball in-game or in-season, I should say, or just think about some season tickets. Supernovas.com. Supernovas.com as the 2025 season is here. with the Supernovas and the Atlanta Vibe coming up. Friday, the 10th of January. Get to CHI, be a part of it. Supernovas.com. So Elijah's feeling good. His Broncos are playoff bound. They head to the Fighting Searleses of Buffalo on this weekend. What a stretch, dude. You've got Penn State, Notre Dame Thursday, Ohio State, Texas Friday, and then Wild Card Weekend, man.
Well, you're supposed to call it Super Wild Card Weekend now. They added the super in there for some reason.
Well, because they can.
Super Wild Card Weekend. That's important.
So have you been to a playoff game?
No, never.
Okay.
NFL? You think I'm money bags over here?
Well,
have you seen those prices?
Jeff the pharmacist has been a season ticket holder forever. Forever and ever for the Broncos. And we went, I think it's been 20 years ago, with Brady's first playoff loss in New England.
Oh, you talking the Champ
Bailey fumble out of the end zone that didn't get called?
It was out at the one.
No. It was not.
Did you have indisputable video evidence? I don't think so.
I was seeing triple that game, and I could tell it was out of the end zone.
Is that Ben Watson with the incredible play to chase it down 99 yards and knock him out at the 1 yard line?
You know, it was a great pregame when you got to close your right eye to focus in and just go with one eyeball and seeing where the ball goes. I think that was old Mile High, wasn't it?
That was New Mile High.
It was New Mile High? Okay.
That was early New Mile High. Okay. I think it opened in 01, and that would have been 04.
Gotcha.
If I remember correctly. So that would have been early on in that stadium's history. And
used to stay at the old Red Lion Inn, a parking lot crawl to the old Mile High.
Yep.
And then go to the top floor and get it rolling. Well, but that playoff game was, it's like, how am I even at this thing? Still pretty cool to be a part of that history.
If the Broncos take down Buffalo and end up getting a trip to Kansas City, I'd have to consider.
Walk-in price for that game with those two teams
be a lot.
Oh, you're going to drop $500, aren't you? Probably for third tier?
Yeah, probably. Well, depend. Maybe you get a really cold game where the prices will drop slightly.
Dude, there's no such thing. Kansas City will be in full throat, tailgate ready, and it can be 17 below, and they're going to be tailgating. Someone's going to fire up a grill, or several thousand will fire up a grill, and they'll be there for the revenge game.
Well, that being said, though, it's a tall task for Broncos to make it through Buffalo.
Sure.
I like their chances better than what the Vegas line is, which I think the Vegas line has it at either 8.5 or 9 now.
That's 9.
I like the Broncos' chances better than that. I'm not sure I like their chances to win still. That's still an incredible offense and quarterback. But I think the Broncos have the better coaching staff.
No, maybe you get a turnover or two. We'll see. Hour 2 coming up. Charlie McBride on the way.
This is Christian Peter. I'm sorry, but the stories I have about Charlie are not appropriate for the public.
The right case of the Mondays. It's Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride, on Hail Varsity Radio.
Back at it, Hail Varsity Radio into Hour 2. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and great to have you in. On the stream, Hail Varsity YouTube, Hail Varsity Radio Twitter, Hail Varsity Radio Network. Mr. Blackshirt to Monday with Charlie, Coach Charlie McBride. It has been way too long. Happy New Year, Coach. Thanks for a few minutes. How we doing?
Happy New Year. Well, we had a party here, 2 of us.
Yeah? I love it, man.
We didn't do anything. I think I made it to bed by about 10 o'clock.
You know, I was working on a food coma by 10 p.m., then I got a little coffee in me, and I tried to take on a 20-ouncer that we deemed the 96-ouncer steak for dinner.
Wow.
But I got it accomplished, much to the public shaming of Elijah.
We did what?
It was a 20 ounce. What would you say? 2 inches, 3.5 inches thick.
Put it at 2.5.
2.5. Yeah, that's what I had for New Year's Eve dinner. It was big time.
God, I got a ham from my brother-in-law, and we ate a little bit of that, and some potatoes, and same thing. Potatoes, they're easy to get here because we have massive potato fields.
Okay.
Yeah, and they use earth movers to move this stuff. Great. They do. And then they have a place here, and they put them on conveyor belts and load up semis and stuff like that and haul them out of here, and then they plant again.
So I got to ask, are you a baked potato guy, or are you a mashed potato guy?
And there is a correct answer here.
Well, see, that's the problem. I'm a baked potato guy, and my wife's a mashed potato guy.
Well, Schmitty, what are you?
I'm a baked.
I'm mashed.
No, it's you a baked potato all the way.
No.
You eat all of it. You eat the skin. You salt the skin with sea salt or kosher salt, and you just go to town with it. You do baked potato, don't you, Coach?
Yeah, I have baked potato, and then when I have left over, I throw it against the wall and then give her mashed potatoes.
You have any potatoes on hand to throw against the wall when kicks are blocked?
No, she's good. She doesn't complain because we don't make mashed potatoes. You can buy them, you can buy them at the store.
Uh-huh.
And that's what we've done.
I like it. Coach, we haven't talked to you since the bowl win. What'd you think of Nebraska-Boston College?
Well, it was pretty good. I was really excited about, the game. I thought they'd win. I didn't know, I thought they won bigger than the score showed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe a little bit at the end there. They got, a little sloppy, but it was, as a rule, it went all the way through, and that's the thing you're trying to look for, that they're playing the whole time, and and they still got some way to go, but it's coming up, and that with all this portal stuff going on, it's crazy. I'm not kidding you. I hear coaches talking. Even high school coaches, kids, a couple of kids here, they're trying to get, agents are even bugging them now. And so that's going to start, and then that's going to just really throw a wrench into it, because these guys now that aren't signed, have, most of them you'll find out have agents, and who knows what the parents are telling them, and some kids are just saying, I'll take the money and I don't care where I go.
It's Charlie McBride with us here, Hail Varsity Radio. Charlie, that is a reality. That's kind of the new era of college football that we live in, that money rules all. And I think you had a safe place in college football where money didn't rule all, but that has all changed within the past 5 years. And it's just the reality that you have to live in. It's something that modern coaches are adjusting to. And I just want to get your thoughts on that adjustment period where it's, you don't want to go to the portal, but you have to go to the portal, Yeah,
I think it's I'm old school, so you're what you have when you're going through your life. It changed so much. I mean, after this SMU thing, and then all of a sudden now we're doing the SMU thing, and nobody's getting put on probation. But it's just a thing that I think that parents and coaches, high school coaches, are going to have to get used to. And and Chicago is one of the things you usually, you go around there and you see most of the basketball coaches have, sweatsuits from about 10 different schools, and so that some of that stuff was, going on, and I'm sure one coach in Chicago told one of the fellas that I know that he couldn't talk to his kid unless he had $25,000.
Jeez.
So the coaches, you see, are getting in it, and that's when you get all that kind of stuff going. That's the hard part. To get the kids to give you an honest answer, and we worked hard on trying to make a commitment on a real thing, and a handshake was good enough for 90% of the kids, And so now with they're visiting other schools and committed to one and going to other schools and everything, and it kind of makes you feel kind of uneasy.
Well, it's a different era, and it's not necessarily for you want kids to be taken care of, but you don't want the waters to get so murky that it's not the best spot for them.
Right. It's I suppose everybody will get used to it, and then in 10 years from now, it'll be like nothing happened. It'll be there, and it's going to make schools, have to raise money every year, and it's going to start to get harder.
Well, Coach, let's say that you were coaching in the transfer portal era and you had bags of money to throw around. I know it's not what you're comfortable with, but if that was the reality, is there a player that you played against that you'd want to have on your team that you'd go throw some money at and say, come to Nebraska?
Well, the ones that I know of are, that I think the one in Colorado still, you'd probably still go on him. Really try to get a kid like that can do both things, but he can, he could be a punt return guy, and he can be a receiver, and he can be a defensive back, and he'd be a punt return or kickoff return guy. And guys that do multiple things are, those that you have to kind of watch. But I do know one thing. And you can mark this down. I mean, everybody is all out. I mean, I get nervous when we're recruiting all these wide receivers when we don't recruit linemen. I mean, both sides of the ball. If you don't have a defensive line and an offensive line, you can quit. You can go somewhere else. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, you get a good. Well, let's look at our quarterback. He could have got killed the first part of the year when he started, and so it's a tough thing, and you really have to zero in on how many guys. We're going to take so many offensive linemen and so many defensive linemen, and then you can end it there. But you can't go in with one scholarship lineman or two or three, and you got to go in with 5, 6, 7 of them in the offensive line, and 18 or 20 guys that you're going to have it. Even at the 105, you're going to have it right. Yeah. And the defensive lineman's a little different because we were a 4-3, so. We had to have 2 guys in the middle, and then then of course you have your outside guys. We call them rush ends, or in those days. Now they're specialty.
Sure.
That's one guy's a tight end guy or something, and one guy's not. But our kids, 195, 210 pound guys, they learn to play against the tight end, and learn that stuff, and some of them were really good.
Charlie McBride's with us Monday with Charlie, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, I want to get your thoughts on special teams. Nebraska is making a change there. What was your philosophy? What was Dan Young's philosophy? Just overall, your time at Nebraska, what did you want special teams to do or to be?
Well, what I did was I took the way special teams was going on, I took the 2 tackles, the 2 linemen inside and the middle linebacker, and we worked on those stunts until the middle linebacker had to go, or both of them, 2 of them or 3 of them that I was working with had to go to kicking. But everybody had a job. We had a special teams coach. It was usually our linebacker and a coach. But that doesn't mean anything. That everybody has to have a linebacker coach to do that. But everybody had a position to keep an eye on. I know our coaches had just in the kickoff in lanes, and one coach will have just 2 lanes. One coach, and they'll coach the kids up and do things like that. We'd always have a couple of sneakers, like fakes, and we'd work on those things every time we kicked. I mean, that'd usually be the last thing in the kicking part of it, but it was kind of the fun part of it, and something to keep it interesting. But and maybe only use it once a year, and there's been times we've never used it. There's different returns, and I remember, I think the toughest people you could have was Colorado. They had 2 double teams and so forth, and did a good job on side returns and stuff like that. And, you could tell they worked on that all the time, and you could expect it, and they did it. They didn't hide it or anything like that. So it's a matter of just, keeping your hands to yourself. And I saw a guy one time, he says, well, practice, we grab the guy. And I said, yeah, and then they do it in the game, too. That's what, so, there's a lot of little things. But I think you get more out of it when you have all the coaches kind of involved in it in some way.
Mm-hmm. It's Coach Charlie McBride with us here. And Coach, whenever you look at special teams, do the players make the coach look good, or does the coach make the players look good? And to put that simply, is it Jimmys and Joes or X's and O's?
I think the players make the coach look good myself. Mm-hmm. I've always thought that, the players are the guys that do the game, and, they can say, well, that coach is really good, and maybe he's really not, and maybe the players are just good. So, it works. It works. The ones that admit it, I think, are pretty good. I used to just admit it. I had good players. You might as well end it there,
Coach, who you cheering for in the NFL playoff run?
Detroit.
Are you?
I live in Michigan.
No, I know that, but I didn't know if you were wearing that Barry Sanders jersey or not.
Hey, you could be with me and be on the Broncos.
Yeah, well, the Broncos are their history. I mean, right now, but I think that that they've done a good job here with the Lions, and so I kind of I live here, and so I've been a Cardinal fan all my life, and I still am.
Yeah. Well, you cheering for Tampa with your buddy Jason Light?
Yeah, Jason's still down fighting it down with the Buccaneers. Yeah. And of course that guy Evans went over 1,000 yards. I see this this last game, and that's pretty exciting about when you get a receiver like that. And he's a little bit of a renegade in his own right, but he's easy to control. But he's a tough guy sometimes to deal with. In fact, he was talking. He wanted to go somewhere else a couple of years ago, and and then all of a sudden Brady came in and this and that, and they got some good quarterbacks, and so it's calmed them down.
Yeah.
And with the 1,000 yards, he's probably really loving it down there.
No, big time, $3 million payday. Coach, we'll
and no one looked happier to pay it than Jason Light.
No, I know. We'll get you hollered at next Monday, Coach. Looking forward to spending some time again. Thanks for joining us. I'll be here. Happy New Year to everybody, and just be nice to the dog, okay? I will. Okay. All 3 of them. Take care, Coach. Okay. Good having me. Thank you. Bye.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, Blackshirt Hour continues. It's Hail Varsity. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We say hi to Jay Moore, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. Big Red wrap-up at JMoore44 on Twitter. We're into 2025, Bert. It's felt like forever since we've talked. Bowl game has happened. Special teams spot needs filled. NFL playoffs are here. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's good to get back with you guys. 2025 is here. I know the holidays are great because I need to stop eating and drinking as much. So it was a fun couple weeks.
Good take there. The moderation part will hit some Husker basketball as well. But what do you think, Jay? Since we haven't talked since Pinstripe, what'd you think of this season? Of just the way Nebraska finished out? They're cleaning up in the portal, it feels like, and they're continuing to reconfigure and adapt to what college football is.
Yeah, I mean, just overall, I thought, the bowl game was great. Love that they got it done. Not surprised how it ended the way it did. Just the special teams popping its ugly head again. But overall, I thought this team probably underachieved. I think there's more talent there than 7 wins. I thought this would easily be, they got another win in there this year easily, and if not more. 8 regular season wins seemed like obviously very, very attainable for this team, but again, didn't happen. And a lot of that was because of special teams and just a lot of young players that played and some injuries in some spots. But I love the fact that they ended on the high note, no matter if you want to call it definitely wasn't a clean win by any means, but you got to win. And those bowl games are tough when you don't know who's playing. Obviously, Boston College had key players out, but you went to New York and you took care of business, and that was first and foremost. And momentum's a true thing. I talk about it a lot. I think carrying this momentum into the offseason, and then you're talking about with the portal, and then with some coaching changes as well that has to happen. And I just think Nebraska's in a good spot. The portal it's been chaos. It will continue to be chaos until there's some parameters that are put around it. But I think Nebraska has embraced it. I mean, the rankings, the portal rankings, I saw the latest. Nebraska's at like 9 right now. So you take that with a grain of salt. I always say guys are in the transfer portal for a reason, but also just in this world in general of transfer portal issues and chaos. I mean, guys are being pulled out even though they probably weren't initially trying to go in there because of, you want to call it tampering or just being offered more money. And then it just is what it is. And that's just a game you kind of got to be willing to play. It's the Wild Wild West. So I hope they kind of, I don't know exactly when the portal ends, but I hope they just finish it up strong. They probably need to grab a few offensive linemen would be nice to finish this thing off. But overall, they seem that the momentum's kind of going in the right direction, and got to carry this into winter conditioning and into spring ball. And obviously, the next big task is getting down to that magic 105 number that you have to have going into the season. But there's a lot of work has to get done before we get to that point.
Jay, with the wide range of portal guys coming in, as you zoom out here and look towards winter conditioning, do you think that transfer portal guys can step in and take on leadership roles within a team, or do you think you need to have leadership and culture established to bring those guys into? Which side of that are you on?
It just depends. I think if guys, it's more personality traits probably that are going to be able to step in and do that first. If guys are more reserved and on the quiet side, they're probably the same at the previous school. So it's be rather difficult for them to kind of come in and do that right away. Probably a little more lead by example, you'd like to think. But if some guys were vocal and had no problem speaking their mind respectfully, I think they could come in and do that. But I also think you kind of you gotta feel it out a little bit. But I also think times are different to where you can kind of start to create relationships with other guys in the team so much easier than when I was coming into school or whatever it may be, just because the access you have to people and social media and all sorts of things, right? So I think you can get them on that leadership aspect quickly, but it's I think everyone's is a different scenario. That's a tough ask for someone to come in there who has not played a down for this team. But if they have if you have some guys come in that, whether they played in the SEC, other Big Ten schools, ACC, whatever it is, and they perform well, they can come in, and I think some guys probably should listen, because if they have some street cred, right, and they played at a high level. But if you kind of maybe didn't, and maybe you're injured or whatever it is, that's gonna be hard to kind of come in there and step in. I think just having that credibility has to happen first. That has to get established before I think really anybody can come in and kind of start speaking their mind and telling people what to do, or start talking about standards when you just arrived on campus. That's really hard.
Jay Moore is with us. It's Hail Varsity Radio. Jay, you have Football Scoop reporting over the weekend that Ed Foley out as coordinator for special teams. And what is necessary for special teams when it comes to culture and demand? What type of coach has to be running the show? And we all like Ed. We all wish Ed well. Mm-hmm. He may still be doing something with Nebraska. Nothing's been commented officially yet, but of course you got the Mike Eckler, Bill Bush mentions out there, and all the other folks that Matt Rule knows through his various years of networking. So we'll see, or if maybe Nebraska goes and promotes from within. I mean, there's 100 options, but the option isn't going to be Ed Foley moving forward.
Yeah, Ed is. I've had the privilege to get to know Ed a little bit. In the year and a half since he's been here, fantastic guy, awesome, and I think I got his ability to connect with all the high schools in the state in the last year and a half since he's been here, and that's been an area that's been really neglected, and I think he embraced that, which should not go unnoticed. I know the special teams weren't up to snuff, obviously. I hope there's a spot for him on staff to help out, but something needed to change, obviously. And things had to move in a different direction just for this team to get those 2 extra wins, 3 extra wins, get over the hump, right? You watch all these other bowl games and playoff games, and you see special teams being a difference. You see Iowa returning kickoffs. You see Notre Dame returning punts and kickoffs. You see all these extra plays being made in the return game that just, never seemed like a real possibility for Nebraska, and let alone you have the snapping issues, which is that will definitely get fixed and has to get fixed. But there's a lot of good coaches out there, and I think whether it's a full-time special teams coach, which you can obviously, that's so much easier to do now that there's no limit on how many coaches you can have on staff. So whether it's a Bill Bush, an Eckler, Bill Bush was my special teams coach in Nebraska.
What was he like?
But he was high energy. And that's what I think special team coaches say. You have to have the juice, because it's you're running around with your hair on fire for 30 seconds. That's a play in special teams, right? Special teams is so weird because you go from defense to offense to defense in the same play, right? You're on punt team, which you have the ball, but then you have to go down and tackle someone. So it's just such a unique situation. But Bill has the energy and the juice, and that I've been around a lot of special teams coaches, and a lot of them have a screw loose. They're different coaches, and I'm not saying Bill has a screw loose, but they're just different
in a good way.
In a good way, like the stuff you have to have, and you got to be running around there. You have to have the energy. It has to be really, really important to you. I'm not saying it wasn't to Ed or whatever. It's just they're just different guys, right? And I think Bill would be. I don't know his thoughts. Obviously, he's still here in Lincoln and doing some radio and doing some public speaking. And I think you'd be a fool not to have a conversation with him. If Mike Eckler's there, Mike Eckler is the epitome of a special teams coach. Crazy, right?
yeah.
Mike Eckler tried running
The interstate.
From Lincoln to Omaha on the interstate. Like, that was a challenge. You tried to do it. Now
in the summer, wasn't it? Wasn't the humidity level, wasn't the humidity percentage the same as my golf score, like triple digits? I mean, it was a hot day.
A state trooper pulled him over, like, you cannot run on the interstate. He's like, well, so-and-so challenged me, so I'm gonna run. And that's just the craziness you have to have, right? And he had that craziness when he played at K-State.
That's true.
It's different. It's just energy. That's what I always and passion. You have to have passion for it, because it's not special teams is not a sexy. It's not a sexy thing when you're dealing with some young kids that want to come in and play. You don't want to start at one of the 11 spots on offense or on defense, but a lot of times you got to start at special teams, and that's not what some kids want to do. Other than maybe a punt return, kick returner, it's not sexy to be on the front line of a kickoff return and have to run back 20 yards with your back turned to someone. You have to go in and block them after they've just ran 25 yards, right? That's hard. Doing the same to punt. You got to be on punt and then run down 30 yards and go make a tackle. Then 30 seconds later, you got to go play defense. It's hard. So you have to have that passion, that energy, and get guys to get on that same level as you to execute those plays. And then you have to get some talent. In the kick return game, guys with some speed, guys that can get their foot in the ground and get vertical and go score. And then you have to get a long snapper, the guy that can snap consistently no matter what. So there's lots of different variables, but I feel really confident if it's not those guys, that Matt Rhule is going to bring in somebody that knows exactly what he wants and what needs to get accomplished. So there's plenty of good coaches out there. Nebraska special teams will be vastly improved next year. I have no doubt about that.
It's Jay Moore with us here, Hail Varsity Radio, reacting to Ed Foley out the door as Nebraska's special teams coordinator. And Jay, it's kind of, at least in my eyes, easier to quantify a offensive coordinator that is doing good work, a defensive coordinator that's doing good work. You can see it with the eye test, whereas I feel like with special teams, it comes down to a couple plays a game where it's, all right, did this help the team or did this hurt the team? It's harder for me to quantify what makes good special teams and what makes a good special team.
Staying out of the way, like not being a sore thumb in that context of a game. That's what special teams is to me.
Well, Jay, how do you define like a good special teams performance from Nebraska in the year 2025? It's different than offense or defense. I want to get your take on what defines good special teams play to you.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to it, it's not costing your team a loss, right? That's when it comes down to it, and you execute the necessary stuff. Good special teams is like it's kind of like boring. It's you punt it and you have good coverage, and whether they fair catch or the guy's tackled right away, there's nothing glaring, right? It's an easy 35-yard field goal. The snap's perfect, the kick's good. It's like, oh yeah, that's what it should look like. It doesn't have to be these huge explosive plays in the return game. It's like you talk to most special teams coaches, they're happy if they get a 10-yard return because that's an extra first down, right? So, like I said, it's great if you can get those. You get a block punt for a touchdown. That's a huge play. A blocked field goal for a touchdown. Big plays. There are punt returns, kickoff returns for touchdowns, but this looks really, really simple, but it's hard. It's hard to make it look that simple, and but mainly you just can't cost your team wins. You can't have bad snaps to get field goals blocked when it's a lot of one-score games. You can't continue to not have a dominant or any sort of return game at all, whether it's in the kickoff return game, punt return game. You got to try to get your team a first down in the return game. That's huge. And it's just, there's got to be just the effort has to be there. But ultimately, it does. I think good special teams is boring, and you just don't cost your team games, and you make the necessary plays, you make the necessary kicks, and you take advantages of other teams' weaknesses when they don't address them appropriately. Like what happened in Nebraska this year, getting 7-8 kicks blocked. Teams attacked it because it was a weakness, and that's what good special teams do.
Jay Moore's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Is this Nebraska basketball team different than last year's in the sense that you feel like they'll be able to handle prosperity. Kind of a litmus test tomorrow at Iowa. Repeat of last year. You come off a big win. Not quite the Purdue magnitude, but the brand value of beating UCLA like Nebraska did in the way they did. They out-grimied and grittied Mick Cronin's crew, which doesn't happen every day. The Nebraska basketball fans are smiling. You should be. That said, can you go compete at the necessary level this time in Iowa City? You get a redo from a year ago.
Yeah, I think, and I know Mick Cronin doesn't talk. He kind of shot down the atmosphere of PBA, and I thought the atmosphere was awesome. And
energy matters.
It does matter, and Nebraska didn't shoot very well. No, obviously neither team. I don't even know if double-digit three-pointers are made by both, total in that game. I think UCLA was like 3 or 4 of 27, and Nebraska wasn't much, a little better than that, but barely. But that's what I think Nebraska needed one of these type of games, because they've always in the past have shot really well at PBA. But what happens when you don't shoot well? Who's gonna kind of create? Who's gonna get your offense through? Can you get the necessary stops on defense? And they did. I think Bryce didn't have his best game, but his ability to get to the free throw line is huge. You got to get the ball to the hoop, and you got to make free throws. And Nebraska's a darn good free throw shooting team. So it's just, you need some of those games like that. The ball's just not going to go in the hoop every time, and you got to find ways to be gritty and be tough and figure out how to get offense from other aspects of the game. And they did that one. And Gary was played awesome on both sides of the floor. Bryce did his things. Connor was cold. You had Hoiberg just be that scrappy energy guy that you needed, diving on the floor for loose balls. Morgan was fantastic. His ability to play on both ends of the floor and his footwork down low is great. Mia can come in and be that big body and that presence. But I think everyone just has a role, and they're deeper than probably last year. And I think there's multiple ways to get it done. So I don't know if this team's further along or better than last year. I think it's too early to see, but they have. I think obviously with not having K-Safe as they had last year, Connor's been that guy to kind of replace that explosiveness from behind the 3-point line. But I feel like there's other guys that can, you don't have rank, so he kind of brought that old school, just the fundamentally sound stuff. I think that Alex Morgan kind of is able to do that, provide that as well. So it's going to be fun to see this next stretch. 2 roads on the next 2 games on the road to get back at Rutgers next Thursday. So they're fun, man. They're fun to watch. Got to having meaningful basketball this time of year around here is huge. Something to look forward to when the weather's crap outside. So they're just it's a fun team to watch. And I tell you what, I mean, they have a lot of good basketball ahead of them, and I think the seniority of this team will figure out ways to find some wins where I don't know if it maybe happened in previous years.
Jay, quickly here before I get you out, Nebraska's home winning streak. What do you make of that? How does a team protect the home court like that? And just what's your reaction to a team being able to do that? What's the streak at now, Schmitty, in terms of consecutive 20 consecutive home victories? What does that mean to you?
No, that means that it's important to them, and I think the support that this fan base gives them is so good. You had that game against Southern just last week. The first game they had after getting back from Hawaii, and the place is packed. I mean, after all the holidays, I mean, if anything was going to be a slow game, was going to be that Southern game. It's like, I'll wait to go to the UCLA game at Saturday at once. Like, nope. Southern the place was jam packed, and this team loves to support success, and I think they can will teams to win. And I think they'll continue to do that. So I think that energy that PBA has, it's so much fun. I get myself caught up in it as well. I think I get myself more caught up in the energy at Nebraska basketball games than I do football games.
Sure.
The atmosphere is fun. It's awesome. It's electric. Maybe having a beer in your hand helps more. can't hurt. So I think Nebraska will get the Memorial Stadium will get to experience that next year. But no, it's just I think the energy and the fans that brings in day in and day out it helps and it matters.
Jay, playoff field or the Chiefs? The field or KC?
Give me the field.
Okay. Who do you like on the field?
A future Super Bowl champion doesn't lose 38 points and get shut out in the last week of the regular season.
Especially in Denver, for God's sake. But
watch yourself.
Are you going? Are you going with Detroit? Do you like Buffalo?
I think Buffalo is the team. I like Buffalo the best in the AFC. I'll say that. NFC? The Ravens and Steelers are in a unique situation because the Steelers kind of got the Ravens number, but the Ravens are a better team, in my opinion. So, but I definitely love the Bills. I think this is Josh Allen's due. Probably is the MVP. But I definitely like Buffalo. NFC. Gosh,
I kind of like the Tampa Bay Bucks, man. They're just playing ball.
They're interesting. I think a sneaky team, and I like Detroit. I love Detroit. I love the story. The injuries, I think, are just going to catch up with them defensively, even though they held up strong last night. I think the team that's really gotten no respect this year and early on and has rested some guys, because of injuries and because they could, is Philly.
Philly's locked in. Hurts is still in concussion protocol, so gotta watch that. But if they
got rested up, but I mean, that team's tough, man.
They're really good. Him and Saquon 1-2 punch.
He gets back healthy. I like them as well. So I tell you, this next stretch starting Thursday with the 2 days, Thursday, Friday college football playoffs, and boom, Saturday, Sunday. Gonna love to see it.
We're gonna pour one and go watch some ball. Jay Moore with us here. Jay, we'll check in next Monday. Thanks again.
Yep, you got it, boys.
Gotta love Jay and his thoughts. We appreciate everybody who joined us on Monday and all of you in the stream. Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you catch us. Hail Varsity Radio Network. Big thanks to Tim Verghese. Catch his interview. Some thoughts on the portal options from Tim on the offensive lines. Check that segment out. Find all the segments, Hail Varsity YouTube or Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity when you search Hail Varsity Radio, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. So, Tim Verghese today, Coach McBride, Jay Moore this hour. Tomorrow, Elijah will put the old big red cowboy hat on as they are off to Iowa. Andy Markowski, the pride of Ord, going to be with us to talk some Husker hoops. Michael Brunt's with us from Husker 24/7 Sports. And in to release the Fury, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. So loaded up tomorrow. Going to be a good week. It's nice to be back for a full week.
Yeah, it's going to be a long week, though. After the time away with...
You think? I think it'll fly.
Me counting down the days till the Broncos play in the postseason. That's the main contributing factor here. Which I have found that, like, the older I get, the faster the weeks go. That's just reality. So, like, it's not going to be that long, but it is going to feel longer than the average week with no Husker game at the end of it. Broncos counting down the days till they're back in the postseason with some nervousness. So it'll be a good week, though.
What are your Are you going to manage your expectations for the weekend?
You better believe I'm not betting on the Broncos. So.
Well, I'm not asking you to lose money. I'm just saying.
Hey.
I'm saying... what are you half full glass of whiskey or half empty glass of whiskey? Thankful you're in, or you expect him to do something with this?
Young and hungry is dangerous. It's nothing to lose. I'm not going to be disappointed if they lose,
so
but I'm excited
about
for it.
Old Josh Allen.
Young and hungry is dangerous for the Broncos.
All right, back tomorrow. Goose, give it a shout out to Duda and company, Doug and Daddy. Check out their interview with Harburg. Back tomorrow at 4. Thanks.